Emily,
Hello.
lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you
How are
too.
you doing?
Yeah, very well,
Great.
thank you.
Well, first of all, it's an absolute pleasure to be able to sit down, take the time with you, to talk about everything. First and foremost, though, how are you? How have the last 2 years been for you?
I'm okay. I feel good.
Yeah.
You know, it's nice to be able to get new music out.
Mm.
Kind of feel like you have a job again in some way. But I've been okay. You know, I think I feel very blessed to have had music in my life over these past 2 years, especially.
Right.
Something to focus on, something to channel energy into. So yeah, I think now I'm just looking at life with a whole new kind of frame of gratitude when everything was kind of pulled from under your feet as it was for everyone.
Yeah, 100%.
I think being able to do anything again, I just feel like, okay, cool, I feel grateful, and I feel like I'm appreciating each step as opposed to always having a year's plan or a 3 months plan ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Every day I'm just taking as, okay, this is great. You know, who knows what's going to happen
Yeah,
tomorrow?
exactly,
Who knows
man.
which next message we're going to get? So I feel it's allowed me to slow down and take things in and be a bit more present.
Where were you at, like, mentally and spiritually before this pandemic hit?
I think just in a rush, you know, everything was
That's so
just,
true.
you know,
Yeah.
rush,
So,
rush, and once you do that, then you need to do this, and if that doesn't, you know, just kind of in this, you know, chronic panic
mhm.
without knowing it. You know, you think you're doing a great job, you're like, yeah, I'm getting things done, and I'm ticking this and this off, but really, you're just kind of not quite letting things sink in. So I think compared to where I was 2 years ago,
Yeah.
I feel quite changed. You know, I feel a lot calmer, and yeah, but I feel like I just have a lot more self-awareness in certain ways.
100%.
Yeah.
Aside from music, and over the last 2 years, how have you been sort of looking after yourself and keeping yourself busy?
You're spending more time with my family.
Right.
You know, I was living with my family when everything kind of happened, and being with my nephew, spending time with children is so important, I think, because they know so much more than we do.
Yeah.
You know, we forget ourselves the older we get sometimes. So just to be grounded again, humbled by a child, I think that's kept my spirit.
I feel like they pick up on things that we don't see.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they'll let you know, and I think they know that we've lost ourselves in some ways. They're like, God, I think they just feel sorry for adults.
Don't we all?
Like, why are you just so stressed? And so it's so nice. And he's such a vibrant little boy, so being around him for sure. And apart from music, yeah, just settling down, reconnecting with my family more, speaking to my mum, going to visit Scotland. Things that I guess, you know, maybe I'm just getting older and I'm appreciating nature so much more. But things like that, I'm like, how can I make myself just be calm? And after a while of doing the same things, watching everything on Netflix, you do everything you think that might chill you out, but actually you just need to be reconnected with earth in some way.
What have you been watching on Netflix?
I mean, of course, Squid Games, but nightmares following, like 3 weeks of nightmares later. Bro, I'm maybe thinking I shouldn't have done that.
That was a heavy one, wasn't it? Yeah.
So I'm trying to balance it up now with like 80s rom-coms to get myself back in the middle. What else have I been watching? I mean, I love the OA. I'm so sad that the third series was cancelled.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's very good. Really deep and kind of really like profound spiritual messages I found in that. And BoJack Horseman, I'm really addicted to watching that. Yeah, just silly, like nothing really educational when I think about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't need to introduce all your achievements and profession as an artist. Like you've achieved everything pretty much. And from what I saw, it started to peak for you back in 2009, maybe when you first sort of hit the scene.
Yeah.
And from what I remember, it was with Chipmunk.
Yes,
and it was on Diamond Rings. That's my first sort of instance of seeing Emeli Sandé.
Yeah.
How did that come? Like, why did it start for you? What started it?
Well, I guess my whole journey into the industry started with meeting Naughty Boy at Shah Khan. And, you know, I was studying up in Glasgow and I was doing like a medical kind of, you know, after second year, I think you have to go and do like a placement somewhere. Right. So I was in Spain. And then I
Whereabouts in Spain?
I was in Madrid.
Wicked.
So I was in a hospital there. And then I kind of got in touch with him on MySpace, I think. Oh, no, this was after. Sorry. So then I flew back to London to do a show for I Love Live. Mm-hmm. And, you know, for me, it was a bit of a disaster because like nobody was listening, because I think this was the same time Chipmunk was coming out, so it was mainly more of like a rap crowd. Then I get on stage singing like a Nina Simone song a cappella, really not reading the room at all. Nobody's listening. Then I'm on my piano, nobody's listening. I just felt so disheartened.
Right.
But in the crowd was Naughty Boy, and he came over and he's like, wow, that was amazing. And that's his special talent. Like, he really does know how to find talent, spot it when everybody else is kind of blind to it. He really sees people and sees their potential. So we just met, and then he was like, come to my car and we'll just like, I want to play you what I'm doing. He was just about to release Black Boys.
Right.
So it was an amazing time. It was me and my sister in the back of his car, and Natty was there, and we were just listening to music, and then we basically started working together, and we had a great chemistry. And then I was hoovering in Glasgow, because I was going back and forth to do school. And I was hoovering, I was like, and he sent me the beat for Diamond Rings. I sent it back down. He was connected to the scene. He sent it to Chipmunk, and the next thing you know, it was like top 10 or top 5, and that's how I got my first publishing deal. So
that's incredible.
That was really the moment where I thought, okay, finally I've got my foot in the door.
How many of those nights did you have where you walk on a stage, or you've entered a room and you feel like it's almost like a slog when you're trying to come up? You must have had a lot of those.
Oh, many, I'm assuming. Yeah. And that's part of it, and that's why, even though it sometimes can be heartbreaking, you have to go through it, because it is going to happen, sadly, you know. But it will get to a point where you will be respected by your audience, or you can grow one. But so many shows where I remember taking my whole piano somewhere and then nobody was listening, and how frustrating it gets. And I remember one of my first shows in London was in Camden, and 3 people came, one being my like old manager. And you know, you go through these like heartbreaking moments, but you have to keep pushing on, and you have to learn how to get over it. And that's why the kind of success, it means so much. When you know, when I was doing the O2, and I was like, wow, all these people came for me, compared to stretching to get 3 people to come to a show in Camden. So you know, you have to go through those kind of perceived failures to really appreciate on a deeper level, I think.
100%. But just 3 years later, you released pretty much a masterpiece, an album that put you on the map. Won you BRITs. Sold millions of records. Like, where did that come from?
It was a crazy journey, and again, it was just about that natural chemistry I had with Naughty Boy, especially on that first album, because it was, you know, he believed in me, and I believed in him as well, and we kind of came up at the same time, and we were just really trying to make music that we loved. We'd just get in the studio, hang out, songs would come out one way or another, and that was pretty much what that was. And then I went over to America to do a couple of tunes, but it really was just, what do we love? Right. And we would play. I remember when we first did Daddy, we're like, oh wow, and we didn't know if anyone was ever going to hear it, but we're like, let's just get in the car and drive around London. And we're there with my friend Tanika, and we're just like, yeah, play it again. And those are the memories that you love, because we had no expectations. I was like, oh, if we can get in the top 10 with this album, that'd be awesome. So the way the whole album blew up took everybody by surprise, but it just made you trust your instinct a lot more, and if you love it, then I think that will translate to other people. Were you able to handle it okay? Because it must have been a lot. Yeah, it was very fast, and looking back, I probably could have, handled it more sensibly. But you're 23, and I just moved to London from this, from Glasgow, but prior to that, this small village in Scotland. So everything was just like, okay, here you go, do what you want, and it was quite weird to go from this like shy girl that had a couple of friends to suddenly everybody knows your name, and also like I. With the quiff and everything, I looked very different to how I naturally do. So that I think that was quite, I always felt like, okay, to be Emeli Sandé, I had to be different to who I naturally was. Whereas now I feel that I can just be myself, and hopefully people will still enjoy the music. Well, you touched on a couple of things there. The first thing was Scotland. So coming from where you came from, I'm guessing there wasn't a lot of creativity around, or was there? There was creativity in Scottish music like Kaylee's and, parents of my friends. There was my friend Nadia's dad, Ross, he was a musician. So the first time I ever was in the studio was with him. So there was things, but there wasn't, I was always longing to be in London and be part of, I always wanted to go to a stage school, or I always wanted to kind of just be allowed to be creative without it being something that you do when you're not studying, 100%. But then on the other hand, I'm quite lucky that my parents really did push education. They said, you can be a singer, you can do music, but first make sure that, you've got your grades and all of those type of things.
Is that where the medicine came from then?
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, I definitely want to make my parents proud, and you know, when you do well in school, you think, okay, well, what should I do? You know, veterinary, medicine, engineering, and medicine. I never really thought I'd be able to do it. So when I got the grades I needed, I thought, let's try this in Glasgow, and it was fascinating. I really enjoyed studying, and I loved the kind of mental focus it kind of took. But I always knew that music was where my heart was, and whenever I didn't have to study, I'd just be making music.
Okay.
And I wanted the passion. I'd see some students that were just incredible. They put in all their hours, they do all the extra classes, the seminars, they give up their weekend for things, and I knew that I just didn't have that passion. My passion was in the music. So I think I had to at least try it one time just to see if it's something I could do.
And did you finish it? Did you graduate? Or?
No. Well, I studied for 4 years. Like I did 3 years, then I did an intercalated year. So I graduated with the Bachelor of Science. So I did a year of like neuroscience.
Wicked.
So I felt, you know, at least my dad got to go to graduation. Like, you know, at least I wasn't completely, you know, wasting their time and money as well. But I mean, I really loved it. It was really a fantastic uni to go to as well. Glasgow is fantastic.
Wicked. And I mean, before we get on to the new music and what you've been doing, I know you've been doing some work with University of Sunderland as well. Yes. Is that right?
Yeah.
So it sounds like education is still an important part of who you are, your identity.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, education changed my dad's life. And my mum's.
So what did they do?
Well, my dad's from Zambia, and quite, you know, rural, poor community. But because of his mind, you know, he was able to kind of completely change his life and come over to the UK to study. That's where he met my mum. And my mum coming from, you know, a working class background where it wasn't really encouraged to go to uni. It was better to get a job. So both of them really kind of had that educational like focus in their life, and they put that onto my sister and I, saying, you know, people can't take what's already in your mind. So that's where you can really have power, and that's where you can really determine your destiny. So yeah, education. And they met in Sunderland University. I was born in Sunderland.
Yeah.
So then it was a really beautiful moment. But because I was born, you know, a bit of a unexpected delivery. But because I was born, my mum wasn't really able to go to her graduation, and my dad was back in Zambia. So 3 years ago, I got to present them finally with their degrees. Wow. And it just, me being the Chancellor of Sunderland, handing their degrees over, is a really beautiful moment.
Wow, that's incredible. And how did the becoming that Chancellor come about?
I think about just over 2 years ago, the university reached out and asked if it was something I would consider, and we met up. They came to London, and just everything they stand for, the whole ethos of the university, really inspires me, and it's everything I believe in, and my family does, that education should be available to everybody, and not just, you know, it shouldn't just be expected to be a low-level education. Why can't it be just as good as those that can pay for it? So I love that they're really trying to offer education and offer facilities to people that, you know, whether you have children or may not be able to afford to kind of study or have accommodation, they really make it easier to have access to education. And their facilities just keep getting better and better, and they've just opened a med school. So I love it all, and there's so much passion behind what they're doing, and now they're really regenerating the city in new ways. I find it really inspiring.
And sorry to stay on this, but are they also trying to harness creativity in sort of creative industries? Because I know that's a big thing, right? With creative people, not necessarily sort of within the strict educational sectors. I guess that's becoming a lot more important, especially with the development of technology and you know, everything that's going on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And their facilities, I went up there 2 weeks ago and just seeing what they have in their photography school, filmmaking. They have radio stations, like state-of-the-art equipment. So everybody has the chance to kind of really be nationally heard, and if you have talent, I think you can really flourish there.
Wicked, awesome. So you're 2 albums deep, but we're about to get a third one, right?
Yeah, fourth one actually.
Fourth one, sorry, we're about to get a fourth one.
Yeah.
It's been a while. Well, it's been a few years.
Yeah.
Why now?
Why now? Well, I'm always making music, you know. So, and there's songs on this new album that are really important to me, and I feel show me in a different light perhaps people may not have expected. And I feel that's the first time I've really had complete artistic control to do what I feel and how say what I want to say in the way I want to. So
sorry to interrupt you there, but why is that?
Well, it's the first time I've kind of made everything in my own home studio, you know, which is, you know, I'm grateful I've always had places to go and make music in, but it makes such a difference when you're kind of in your own territory. You know what's available, you know how. It allowed me to produce a lot more. It allowed me a lot more ownership of what was being made. Having my family around, I was more relaxed. You know, you're not kind of watching the clock and under pressure to make something.
Is that a way you felt when you were working with labels then, or?
Sometimes, I mean, you always you know, if they send you to LA to work with this amazing producer, you know that that's not cheap. You know that, okay, you've got...
Sounds like a dream, though.
It is a dream, but then you're like, when you get there, you're like, okay, we've got 3 days.
Yeah.
You know, even just the flights alone, you better come up with something that's pretty good. So, you've always kind of thinking, someone else is paying for this. 100. And in that sense, you always kind of owe them in a sense. They're waiting to hear. And if you don't, then it's, you know, you're wasting time, wasting money, and all the rest of it. So it was nice, especially these past couple of years, to slow down a bit and just fall back in love with just making music. I wasn't necessarily trying to make an album, I thought, because when lockdown came, it was all at the same time, this big kind of like restart for me, because I'd left the label I'd been with for 10 years.
Yeah.
I'd left the management I'd been with for years. Like everything happened all at the same time at the same publishing company. So it was the first time that I was just me, just a woman. You know what I mean?
Did you feel vulnerable?
A little bit, because it was daunting, but at the same time I was like, there was more of a, okay, if I want to do this, I can continue, but if I want to do something else now, I don't and you know, there's nothing that I need to kind of get out of or explain to anybody. So it was nice just to be like, what am I going to do with my life? You know, let's see.
Amazing. And then so obviously you started making new music, and then you've recently dropped 2 singles.
Yes.
So the first one was Family, and that was your comeback sort of thing, and that was the video, which was great, and you were dancing in it. And, you know, we haven't really seen that side before. Talk to me about that record.
Yeah, Family, that was one that was kind of made in the middle of last year, and I was working with a producer called Henry Davies. And I love working with him because, again, as it was with Naughty Boy, we just had this super cool chemistry. He was open to anything. He wanted to be as left field as possible. So did I. So there were just no rules. There's no one there to tell us not to do it. So I think we're just like 2 kids, like, why don't we try this? And because he's also an engineer, he knew all the different things you can do and all the different sounds we could create. So yeah, Family was just, it came from just having fun making music, really. And then...
that must feel so good. That must take you back when you were doing those shows, right?
And exactly. It was just like, oh, wicked, we can do anything. And I had nobody to answer to. And luckily my management were like, actually, we really like this. And then, then it became the first single. And I wanted it to be the first single because I think lyrically it kind of, you know, it said a lot. You know, I needed to go away to meditate and this and that. And it's the message that I want most of my music to kind of, I want it to be uplifting to people.
Yeah, 100%. And then you follow that up with your most recent one, Look What You've Done, which you also had Birmingham rapper JK feature on as well. I know you've always collaborated with the UK rap scene. How did that collaboration come about?
That was, I was working with, how did it come? Naughty Boy was working with JK on his album. And we were working on a song on his album called Friend Like Me. So they came over to the house to record so I could record my hook part. And then they're like, oh yeah, play something. You know, JK's so cool. He's just like the coolest guy ever. So I was just playing kind of some new music, and then Look What You've Done. There was this gap where there's the piano kind of middle 8 part. And he's like, yeah, who's on there? And I was like, and that's how I'd love it. Obviously, I was too shy to ask him if he'd jump on it, but he actually said, oh, I'd love to go on it. So, and then he just did this killer verse, and I loved it. Everything kind of just came together so nicely, and I love, you know, it's an honor to be in his album as well. And we shot the video a couple of weeks ago.
Wicked.
So yeah, that should be coming out. But it was a great experience, and you know, we worked with Luke Biggins and on the video, so it was such a shock for everybody.
Absolutely.
He passed away, but I'm so happy that we all kind of had that energy together because it was such a a natural day, and there was a great warmth and passion on the day.
And I guess it's amazing you've got a piece of work from Luke as well now that you can share with the world, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You've collaborated with a lot of UK rappers before. Is there something that gravitates you towards that genre? Were you a fan of it, or was it just in general?
I mean, it's always been a part of my journey, especially since I moved to London. And it's everything from the support that One Extra showed me, even when I just had piano demos. I always felt embraced, even though I'm a bit of an outsider, just this girl coming from Scotland, but I've always felt embraced and encouraged and really supported by UK rap scene. And I love just, sometimes I wish I could rap because you can say so much, and I love the perspective people can bring, the poetry that's within it. So for me, it allows me to say so much more when I get to collaborate. And they kind of, anyone I've worked with, they really inspire me in that to be bolder and braver. I think that's the great thing about the UK scene. It's not as polished as America, and it's not as removed. It's so much more like part of, it's just closer and rawer.
It's real and raw.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I love that. It's kind of like, okay, cool, let's really tell the truth.
Amazing. What can we expect from this album then? What's the purpose behind it?
I wanted to create a kind of space where it was just something like a space in which you could kind of be free from anxiety of what's going on. Kind of, it does get quite overwhelming, how the world is changing, and it seems to be speeding up as well. So I really wanted to create music or an album that at least when you're playing it for that hour or so, it just gives you this other space, kind of an escapism or just encouragement, and by the end of it you feel empowered. So I guess you can expect, there's lots of different genres on there, there's lots of different producers I work with, but I think people will definitely get a deeper sense of myself through the lyric, through the different styles I've chosen. I don't know, I just hope it makes people feel good. I know it sounds cliche and a bit like cheesy, but it's true,
You also produced your last track as well. Is that the first time you've done that?
I've always been in production, dabbled in an app. I've never really had the guts to say, okay, we're going to release something that I've produced.
You've produced,
And so again, the joys of having the studio there, and that song started just on piano. It started in Switzerland, just piano. So I had
How come you were there?
I can't fully remember, but I had a day off.
So you just flew to Switzerland?
Well, no, sorry, Dad. I think I was doing a show there.
Okay.
But then we had a day off in between. I was a bit of a diva. I was like, could I have a keyboard in my room, please? And I just had this amazing view of the mountains and playing this riff over and over. So for like a while, I was just playing with this riff. And then, I've always wanted to produce and actually kind of say, this is who I am, beyond the lyric, beyond the piano part. And finally got to do it. And I started it. Henry was engineering, the same guy that we did Family together.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing. I love working with him because he knew that I had this wish to produce. And often, sometimes in the studio, especially as a woman, if you say I want to produce, then people are like, let me help. And sometimes 100%. You don't have the room to actually do it yourself.
Because there's none to really look up to. I'm sure there's a few, but just on the surface level, who do females look up to produce, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And to have that confidence. So I love working with Henry because he always gave me that extra boost. He's like, yeah, you've done it. That's wicked. And so to kind of have that reassurance, and then Darren Jones added additional production to it. So it just feels nice to be like, okay, cool. This is me. This is what I wanted it to sound like and feel like.
Amazing. And I'm guessing, you've been all over the songwriting, because songwriting is actually another massive part of your career, which maybe not everyone's aware of, but you've written hits for everyone, right?
Yeah, I love lyric, and I think if I was left with one thing I could do, I'd just love to either write poetry or just lyrics, because I think that's where the strength of the song is, and the melody, obviously. But so the whole album, I feel like I've gone a lot deeper lyrically in certain songs, and I'm really proud of it. I'm just quite impatient now to get it out because it's all done. It's the first time I've had an album actually done.
Ready.
Early next year it should be out.
Amazing. What's keeping you motivated at the minute?
What's keeping me motivated? Getting the music out. I have this kind of like distant, focus on let's get it out and let's do it in the best way it can. Because once you put so much work into something and the hours you obsess over the mixing and the mastering, and you just want to make sure that when it does actually get released, it's given the best chance it can have. So it feels good to actually have a focus. And also I have a show coming up in January at the Roundhouse.
Amazing.
And another one in Sunderland and Birmingham. So, Brighton.
Brighton.
So that's a major focus for me now, because I
Yeah.
really want to just do it at the piano, just singing.
Wow.
And that'll be the first time I've ever done that. So
Really?
yeah, so practicing a lot piano and just really getting more confident at holding the show by myself.
Mm-hmm. Incredible. Just before we wrap up, I mean, obviously, as an artist and as an individual, you've pretty much done everything anyone could want to do in music, right? What would you say to the sort of generation coming next, especially females who are trying to break into an industry that is typically male-dominated? Race as well playing a part. What would be your words of advice or encouragement to that next generation?
I would say try and, it would be such a shame to kind of lose that connection with who you're actually singing to. I think the internet is a wonderful world, and it does make your job easier sometimes in kind of getting your music out there and getting it heard. But I would really encourage, like we're talking about, even if you're going to have certain gigs that feel deflating or disheartening, like try and get on stage as much as possible, because you've kind of got the pandemic to deal with now. And it's so Brexit also to deal with. So going on tour as a young new artist is so much harder. But I would recommend just trying to get on stage and facing the audience.
Right.
Even though it can be really daunting. But for me, looking back, that's one of the kind of, it sharpens your sword a bit, and it just kind of, it brings it back to what you're actually doing. And I think it can give you more of a unique expression and make you stand out in different ways. But I'd also say never feel like you have to fit into one box or the other. I think now we have so much new music out from different cultures, which is beautiful, but I think at the same time it is becoming a little bit homogenized. Like, if you make this, that's where you stand, and this is the type of producer you need to use, this is the thing you need to sing about, and girls, you have to be sexy, and this, that, and the other. Of course, be who you are and express and use, be what it is, but I think don't feel too pressured to do that. Easier said than done, but
I think it's becoming a lot harder.
Yeah, exactly. And I think sometimes, even if it doesn't look like you've got the views or the numbers or whatever, keep pushing through, because eventually it will be kind of acknowledged that you're creating and saying something that is your own design, not somebody else telling you what to do.
Amazing. Great advice.
Yeah. I'll try to use some myself, but
There you go. Amazing. So I normally wrap up on 2 questions.
Okay.
First one is, what was the first piece of music you remember purchasing or getting hold of, going into a shop to buy, downloading maybe?
Oh God, I wish it was a bit cooler, but I think it was a Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas. It was an Asda, the one that had the CD
the single.
bin, So yeah, and I loved it.
It's a strong one.
It is Mariah Carey, so it's a good place to start. I mean, she's
100.
incredible.
Yeah. Second and final thing, stage or studio?
That's a difficult one, because
that's why it's last.
Depends if the show goes well or not. I'd say stage, I guess. Right now, I'm craving the stage.
You're craving it now,
yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, Emelie, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time,
Thank
and
you
all the best for the album.
Thank you.